Hey everybody, Cindy Daychuk of Queen Bee Creations, and for my second video of today, as it turns out, I did a quick little craft this morning, but I'm back here now for us to continue to work a little bit more on this tiny table. So the only thing that I've done since we were last together is, and let me just maybe lower you guys just a tinch more. Sorry about this bumping around a little bit. The only thing that I've done is that I mixed up a little bit of the gray that we were using, which is the DIY letterpress gray, and I made a wash. So about 50% water, 50% of the gray, and I just lightly coated all of the table. So you'll recall yesterday that we had kind of ended up doing kind of a paint pour with just the cherry picked color over the top. You can kind of see some of where it went, and the gray wash has just kind of softened it. It's toned everything in together, and now we're going to just add in a little bit more color, a little bit more detail. I had done it, hoped it had been all dry. I still have a few wet spots here and there, but oh my goodness, that's my dog. It's going to be okay. We'll kind of work through that. And I think I have create under here with some color. So I have a little bit of paint that I'm going to just pour out onto my paper plate down here. I'm gonna add a bit of the cherry picked for a little bit more of an accent color. I'll take a little bit of the petticoat pink, and I will also add on a little bit more of the letterpress gray. Oh, okay, assuming I can get the pink open. Here we go. Just to start getting in a little bit more of the detail with it, add in just a bit more of that color. I had thought maybe this would be it, but we're going to be adding in more beyond this. So I have a little bit of metallics that I want to add, and that will be kind of a quick, light process, because it will be more just adding it in for a little bit of the detail here and there. But that'll still be with a little bit to go. So all I'm looking at doing at this stage, and I do have my water bottle again, I'm going to add a little bit of water to my brushes that have been sitting. If they've been sitting for a little bit, you know that I've got them wrapped up in plastic, then we just want to wet them up a little bit. I'm just looking at adding back a little bit of the detail. Nothing too strong. Okay. But a little bit of that color back in here and there. And I do want it to still be a little bit light. I have a sponge with me today too, just again to kind of work with it a little bit. A little bit more of that pink. And I'm going to take some of that cherry picked and bring it back in a little bit. So when we're looking at blending, which is really where that DIY paint just excels, a little bit of that water can help, and we don't need a ton of color for it to come back in and really be able to blend and play nice with our other colors. Okay, so you can see where that just kind of highlights it a little bit more, lends a little bit of that color. You can't see, but I can, a little bit of that water lily, that bright periwinkle is still popping through in here in some of the detail areas that we had added it before, which is great. So again, I love a lot of times doing finishes that they look hopefully great from a distance, so we get that kind of detail, but that also when you get up close, there's even more, right? So that we have kind of additional looks, additional detail to it. And there I was offloading my brush, just again adding a little bit of dry brushing as I was toward the end of the color of the purple that I was adding up in there, that cherry picked, just using it in some other places, adding a little bit more detail. And this is for me, once we've got that base coat on, this is where it gets fun, because now this is where we start adding in some of the color and really creating some of the more detailed look of the piece. And it's that layering of those paint colors that really starts to make a difference for the piece itself, right? That this is where it starts to take it. Now I'm just dotting the color there because a little goes a long way. And once I wet it and I'm able to start blending it, I didn't want or need it to be too crazy heavy, but I get to pull it up, pull it down a little bit, get a little bit more of that color happening here and there. I am going to the detail of popping your head around all the weird angles and places that you need it to be able to see what the heck you're doing when you're working on legs. Okay, we're going to need a little bit more over on this side too. Just balancing this out a little bit. That the gray wash just helped to kind of pull everything together a little bit. It helped to create a little bit more of a cohesive look. If you recall from the last video, it looked a little bit choppy, right? In terms of the colors, that they stopped and started a little bit abruptly, and we could have wet them and then blended them together, but then we kind of merged the colors, and I still wanted the colors to have a little bit of an independent look from one another, so having a little bit of that variation. And instead, the color wash just kind of softened everything. It merged them all. This is so much easier on a light piece than when I have big pieces. This is my dog looking at trying to get settled in here somewhere. She probably wants to lie just where I am, and I'm hoping she doesn't lie on top of my paint. Okay, already find a place, baby. I like the look that the cherry picked is giving to a little bit of the detail here. Okay, you guys are still safe. She's lying so that she can be touching me. She's right up against my leg, and unfortunately that means that she's right up against the camera legs also, which just figures. Law of average means what's the most precarious position that she could take up, and that's the one that she'll find. Okay, so I've got a little bit more of that purple in there, and I think that what I'll do with you guys right now is I'm going to focus on these front two legs and put the color on them. I'll do the back two legs on my own, get those done and caught up so that when we come back, we can just work on the last of the little bit of detail together. So I got a little bit of that purple in there. What I did want to do was start to bring in a little bit of the darker gray, but I didn't want it to be too heavy. So I've taken a fan brush and I am taking it fairly lightly, and I just want to add in, almost in a dry brushing, a little bit more of some of that dark gray in some places strategically. So again, just adding a little bit more detail, a little bit more differentiation. Nothing big that you sitting at home are able to see a big distinction, but it will make a big difference on the close-up of the piece. So the details for somebody, if they're looking at buying it, or if you're sitting close to the piece, and it just breaks up, the solid purple, right? So that it's not one solid color in there, and you're kind of creating a little bit more flow and detail up those legs and coming down. And these little brush hairs go in and around some of that detail work. And I picked up a little bit of pink by mistake on that, and I kind of liked it. So now I'm doing it deliberately. So I've got pink and the darker gray. And the nice thing about this brush is that I can use it in the flat edge, but I can also turn it outside to have a nice little narrow piece for some definition if I want. And it gets into some of those detail places quite readily. And this kind of detail part, you get a lot of people that hate. In meaning that they hate doing it, that they want to get the paint on, but they don't like adding this kind of detail. And I gotta tell you, I do like doing this. I think a lot of times it makes a big difference in the piece, especially when you're trying to just kind of age it a little bit or give some of that older look to it. That little bit of detailing in there. It just makes the world of difference. It's time that, again, depending upon if this is for resale and you're having to make your money back per hour, you could argue quite successfully about it not being worth it, and I would get it. But this is at this stage when we're all locked down tight, this is like therapy, right? This is calming, it's soothing, and we get to just work on adding some of that detail in, creating a little bit more texture on the piece. So this is all that I'm going to be looking at doing. I'm going to be adding in those three colors, the gray, the purple, right, the cherry picked, the petticoat pink, the letterpress gray. I'm just going to be using different brushes and adding in those colors, creating a little bit more of that old world effect, and just adding a little bit of detail. I'm going to be focused on the legs, and then we can let it dry overnight and then look at adding in just a little bit more detail with some of the metallics that I have. And for that, we'll see. It might be a combination of some aging dust and some colored dusts. I do have some just metallic oils that we may add in, just some gilding waxes, and maybe a Shiva stick. So if you haven't seen Shiva sticks, I may be using a little bit of gold Shiva stick in some areas as well. So we'll be playing with some of that tomorrow, and just to be able to see what we can do about making some of the colors pop. Today, it's just all about continuing on with my fan brushes and my other brushes, adding in some of the detail in some of those other areas in exactly the same way that we did here, right? Putting a little bit of the color back in and just stay at it. So I probably, on this piece with those techniques, have about an hour's worth of work that I'll be putting in on doing that. I'm not going to keep you for that. You're at least seeing, whoa, okay, sorry, crazy dog. So I'm not going to keep you on that. She's obviously not staying still. I'm going to carry on, and then I'll see you back again tomorrow when we finish it off with some of those, with some of the wax and some of those products. Take care.